Hi, everybody. We are the Butter Dish, and we have an incredible guest today. Serena is with us. She's been an instrumental member in SB Gang. She helps us out as an accountability buddy to support people that are needing some extra encouragement on their carnivore journey. She has shared her successes with us many times in group and is such an encourager. We're just very thankful to have her as part of our group, and we wanted to go into her carnivore journey and ask her some questions about how this process has gone for her. Welcome, Serena. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. I love you guys.
Oh, we love you.
Yeah. Me too. And would you like to start how your carnivore journey started?
Yeah. So the thing that brought me to carnivore is I had this weird post-COVID issue where after you lose your sense of taste and smell, it comes back as things smelling like rotten or rancid, to the point where I have ended up in bed multiple times just because I get so nauseous with an upset stomach from certain scents. And the main culprit for me, the thing that was the worst, and honestly, I'm one of the lucky ones. For me, one of the worst things was vegetables. For many people, it's meat. So I got off lucky. And granted, I didn't end up with any, leftover breathing issues or heart issues or anything like that I know of. But this has been life altering. So my sense of taste and smell had started to come back, but things were like really, really muted, so I haven't actually tasted a cup of coffee except maybe 2 times since December of 2020. And coffee is like a huge thing for me. So things were really muted. And then one day I woke up and the coffee smell made me nauseous. And I didn't know that's what it was. I was like, what is that awful smell? And throughout that week, it just started to get worse and worse. Ordered my daughter something from a fast food restaurant on the way home from somewhere, and literally thought I was going to have to pull over and get sick on the side of the interstate from the smell once it got in the car. I mean, it was just so awful. And so for the next 2 months, I tried to calm myself with sweets, because that's what we do when we're food addicts or carb addicts. And I started gaining weight. I was just feeling really miserable because almost everything I was eating had sugar in it, because those were the only things that tasted normal. I could eat like a fresh hamburger, but I couldn't eat one after it was cooked and then refrigerated and then rewarmed like the next day. I could eat a little bit of steak, but again, it had to be fresh and not rewarmed. But beef roast made me leave my house for hours because of the smell. I mean, just so crazy. So on May 24th, my birthday is May 22nd, and my girls are gluten-free bakers. They have a booth at the farmer's market. They're 13 and 15, and they've been doing this for 4 years. So they were 11 and 9 when they started. Yeah, 11 and 9. And they do great, but they're really, really good at it. And so I asked them to make me some cupcakes for my birthday and asked them to double the recipe. And I ate 20 cupcakes in a weekend. And I was medicating myself with that, with homemade, the homemade frosting. And I don't want to trigger people, but they're so good. And I woke up on Monday morning and said, that's it, no more sugar. And I obviously can't have vegetables because those are making me sick. So there were 5 or 6 things, I could fit them all in the palm of my hand, probably, that I said, these are the things I'm going to eat. And so that led me to researching like keto on steroids, like what happens if I eat only meat and fat. And of course I found Laura Spath and Kelly Hogan and they have been just, huge at, for me figuring out what I needed to do. And since then, started fasting, obviously, with the Steak and Butter Gang. And I have had a few times, I think just a few days, where after a longer fast, I wake up in the morning and coffee smells like coffee. It typically only lasts for 24 or 48 hours. And then everything goes back to like in that 24 or 48 hours, many things taste and smell normal, almost everything. But it tends to go right back. I will say that every time that has happened, I have gotten back 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 foods that go back to kind of smelling normal. So the fasts are still worth doing, especially to be able to just taste my coffee for that 48 hours. But, and obviously, for the other health benefits, but what led me to carnivore was that, and I do feel like I've had a lot of healing. There's no way to know if it has healed faster because of carnivore. There are stories. I mean, I'm in some Facebook groups, and there are people who are on feeding tubes because they can't keep anything down. And then there are other people that have gained 50, 60, 100 pounds because all they can eat is sweet stuff. So I'm very grateful that I made the decision to give up those sweet foods when I did, because it was a downhill path for me all the way, with only being being able to eat those like carby foods. So when I woke up that Monday and said I was cutting out other things, it was also because not only the sweets, but I continued to make things at home that were my favorites, like our favorite meals, or, you know, chicken parmesan, or like I continued to cook like normal. And then I was disappointed and I was sad every single day. I mean, imagine spending that hour and a half, and the smell the whole time you're cooking is making you nauseous, you know, and just hoping you can eat. And we would go out to eat and I would order the healthy foods. I would order a chef salad or something, and it would come and the lettuce smelled rotten. I mean, like over and over again, I tried to eat the things because I saw posts where people were saying, just power through it. You know, you got to just make yourself eat it. The few times I have done that, it did not end well. And so waking up that day on May 24th, I said, okay, I'm going to have to stop doing this to myself. I was miserable. I was puffy. I mean, I have pictures. You've probably seen the pictures that I posted. Those pictures that I posted where my face is just like completely puffy and round those pictures were around that time, most of them. And I was just super inflamed. I had like no energy. The idea that carbs and sugar are where our energy comes from, it just baffles me. Because, you know, by the time it wears off, you need something else. But that's what brought me to carnivore. And like I said, I do think that it's helping, but the main way that it has helped me with that is that I'm no longer sad, you know, just on a regular basis from the smells. When somebody else is eating something I can't have, that is fine. You know, our kids' sporting events, we serve chili with things. And I have these little nose rings I can put on that hold essential oils, so I'm only smelling that instead of smelling, you know, I've worked around it and I figured it out, but I very rarely get sad because there really isn't anything that I can't eat that I want anyway at this point. And like I said, I'm one of the lucky ones because I can eat meat.
I have a question, Serena. Is there a medical term? So obviously we have a term called post-COVID syndrome that applies to, you know, thousands of different things. And so what is the medical terminology for what happened to you? Is there a term for that?
Yeah, there is. So anosmia is where you lose your sense of taste and smell. Parosmia is where it's distorted, which is what I have now, but I also have phantosmia, which is phantom smells. And it was worse in the beginning. That very rarely happens anymore. But like, I don't know what gasoline smells like when I go to get gas for the car, because that is not what it smells like. I can remember what it smells like, but that is not what gas smells like. But sometimes when I'm sitting on the couch in the living room, I will say to my family, does anybody else smell gas? And it's so weird because I can smell it as a phantom smell, but I can't smell it when I'm at the gas pump. Does that make sense? It's the weirdest thing. It's really bizarre.
So strange. Yeah.
It is. It's really strange. Same thing with like cigarette smoke. Sometimes we're just here at home and I'm smelling cigarette smoke like for days on end and nobody else smells it. But when I walk past somebody who's smoking, that is not what it smells like. And the other thing is, it's really hard to imagine, but you know, like when you're in really heavy fumes, like gas fumes or paint fumes, like it gets a little bit hard to breathe. Like you can't feel like you can't take a deep breath. It almost makes you short of breath. That actually happens at the same time. It's the weirdest thing because there is no gasoline and there is no paint. And I don't smell those two things, except when I do smell them as a phantom smell, it's hard for me to breathe. Like my talking is short, even as if I can't finish the word because I don't have enough air. It's really weird, but those things aren't actually there at all. But yet my body reacts as if they are because I'm smelling it. It's just really, really strange.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a neurological connection. And of course, inflammation is going to confuse anything in the brain and in your neurology even more. I am curious about this issue. So carnivore has been a huge healing modality as far as just getting you to be able to experience food and have this start to resolve. And have there been any adjunct therapies that you've used with this post-COVID, this particular post-COVID syndrome that you've had?
Well, you know, in those groups that I'm in, you see every day somebody posts something that they are sure cured them. And so I've tried a lot of those things: zinc, vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid. I mean, I have tried several of those things to smell training. And I teach essential oil classes for a living. And I can honestly say it did not help me. I mean, that's just me being honest.
Thank you.
People tend to, people tend to put, it has helped me with other things amazingly, but not with this. And people tend to put so much focus and emphasis on the physical healing of it, when really for me, even more than that physical healing was the mental healing, because sitting down at a table at a restaurant you know, with your family or sitting down at home and feeling completely repulsed by the food at the table was so hard up here more than anything. And so many people will say, oh, I wish that would happen to me. Maybe I would lose some weight. That's not how it works.
No.
You're still hungry. You don't feel bad. I'm not sick. The smell of my favorite food makes me want to vomit, you know, like emotionally for me, the healing that went along with that from starting Carnivore and from finding the people that I have found and having you guys in my life, like the healing that happened with that is so much greater than any kind of physical healing that could happen from my side effects from it. Now, there are other people that have had terrible, terrible side effects, but you don't realize how life altering this kind of thing can be until it happens to you. So the idea that I mean, how many times have I said to somebody who's allergic to chocolate, oh, I wish I was allergic to chocolate, you know, like, and I will never say that again to somebody. When somebody tells me they're allergic to something that is a trigger food for me, or, you know, something that's emotional for me, I will never say to that person again, oh, I wish I was allergic to that. Because they don't want to be allergic to it. Maybe they love the way it tastes. Maybe, you know, for me, you know, wheat and gluten, I haven't been able to eat that for, you know, 8 or 9 years. And of course, now I wouldn't eat it, but I haven't been able to. And I have actually had people say, oh, you don't know what you're missing. Oh, this is so good. I'm, you know, like that is really hurtful, you know?
Yes.
And my family is pretty careful about it. My friends are, you know, pretty careful about it now. And I just blow it off when I hear people say it in passing, people I don't really know or whatever. I mean, I don't let it bother me anymore, but it was really an eye opener for me as far as, you know, the things that we say to other people that are, you know, dealing with these kinds of things. But overall, the process for me has been healing mentally more than physically. So they say it's like if you have, you know, those huge fiber optic wires that are in like one giant tube. They say that when you lose your sense of taste and smell, it's like those have been severed. Right. So your brain doesn't know what those things taste like. And then with parosmia, those wires get reattached as part of the healing process, but they attach to the wrong wires.
Totally.
Gosh. So, and it's not even like, and it's not even like, oh, if I use, I'm going to use olive oil as an example, even though I don't use olive oil anymore, but if I use olive oil and it smells like what somebody, you know, expels in the bathroom, let's say, which it does, it's not like those two things are swapped, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't know how they are actually like switched, you know what I mean? But at the same time, the other thing doesn't smell like that first thing. It's just really, really weird.
Wow.
The way things, because it's a scent. When it first happened to me, I described it as a rotten skunk carcass that somebody had lit on fire. And that is honestly the only thing that I could relate it to. I mean, even now, yesterday on our way home from basketball, I'm driving and all of a sudden I was like, oh, what is that awful smell? And my daughter says it's a skunk, but it doesn't smell like a skunk.
Right? You smell the skunk?
No, but it didn't smell like but it didn't smell like that. It had that same rotten, disgusting smell that garlic and onion still have, and that chicken has for a really long time, and that hamburgers used to smell like when I would try to rewarm them to eat them. It's like things aren't really like switched around. It's like those rotten and bad things have the same smell as each other.
I was just like ask that, Serena.
It's all the same.
Is it like you just associated with one rotting smell, and so all bad smells smell like that one thing?
Yes, they all smell the same, and so that's why I don't know what it is when I smell it. I always say, "What is that? What is that?" And sometimes my son will come home with a sub or something like for lunch, and I can smell it upstairs in our room with the door closed. So on one hand, it's this awful curse, you know. On the other hand, it's almost like having superpower smelling, because I can walk past something and say there's something rotten in there, or like I can smell mold and I can smell it when things are rotting. Like right now we have kale in the refrigerator that's rotting, because come on, I mean, I bought it for the kids, but they didn't eat it either. And so like I can smell that. I know that that's what that is. But with other bad smells, they're basically all the same, but I can smell things before anybody else can smell them. Like I'll say, what is that? Did somebody bring a chip into the room? Or, you know, is somebody making popcorn, but it doesn't smell like popcorn. It smells a little bit more like popcorn than other things, you know, smell compared to themselves. But I can smell just like little bits of certain things, and everything else that smells rotten has exactly the same smell. Wow, really bizarre.
Incredible. You know, I would like to back up because you mentioned that fasting has allowed you to kind of be able to reintroduce and re-smell things that you've lost. So could you give us an example of how long of a fast you have to do in order for that to happen? And is it a temporary recovery or is it a permanent recovery?
So the first time I got everything back was actually before I started Carnivore, and I did a 5-day water fast for the autophagy to see if it would help. And on day 4, my husband was making a cup of coffee in the afternoon and it smelled like coffee. And that was the first time it had smelled like coffee. And I immediately started going around like opening pepperoni smells so awful, deli meat smells so awful. So I immediately start going around and smelling those things. And they all still smelled rotten. And about 10 minutes later, it was like happening in real time. Like 10 minutes later, my daughter gets the turkey out to make a sandwich and I walk past her and I smell turkey. I was like, that smells like turkey now. The pepperoni never went back. But the ham, the turkey, I opened up a jar of peanut butter just to smell it because that has been one of the most awful. I opened up the garlic and the onion in the cabinet and almost everything smelled the way it's supposed to. And I managed to wait almost a full 24 hours before I ate because I promised myself I was doing 5 days. And I'm not really good at that, like saying I'm going to do something and then doing it, but I was determined because it was working. And so the next day I broke my fast with an avocado. Now I wasn't carnivore at the time. I broke my fast with an avocado. It was the best stinking avocado I have ever had. I mean, it was one of the best things I've ever tasted. And then I ate cupcakes and potato chips and French fries and like you name it. I know,
Right.
You name it. I mean, I was off the rails
You bet.
for the weekend because I could taste it all. And it was like the week before my birthday. So that kind of catapulted into my weekend of sweets. And then woke up Monday morning and said, that's it, I'm done. And so I did get those things back, so many of them, but so that was on a Friday, I broke my fast and I'll never forget. So it wasn't even a full 48, it might've been right around 48 hours. The next morning, Sunday morning, we get up for church and my husband is making his cup of coffee and with our Keurig, and I walked past the coffee maker and started sobbing. I mean, my husband was like, oh, come on. I was it smells so awful. And I handed my cup to my daughter and I was like, I can't believe it. And I went upstairs and cried. I mean, it was very emotional for me because I thought I was fixed, and at that point, it had only been 2 months of the parosmia. I had the anosmia for 3 months where things were really muted. And that's typically the time frame for a lot of people. My daughter has a very close friend who her and her brother ate almost exactly 3 months to the day out of COVID. They got the parosmia. And so I've been watching them try to deal with this. And when she's here, we're always making things, that I know that she can eat and things that won't make her sick. Because I know, because I've been there and still am, with a lot of things. But it's just a really bizarre thing. But anyway, so the coffee was rotten again. And then, that day, just about everything else was also. And so, like I said, it was the next day that I decided that I just wasn't going to make myself sad anymore. And I did give up coffee for a while. And when it wasn't quite as rotten, I added it back in because I really do enjoy that routine. And since then I have switched it off and on and gone to tea or warm electrolytes, or, I'm always kind of messing with it because the truth is it doesn't taste like coffee, but it also, as long as I use a light roast, it's not terrible anymore. It's like roasted things tend to be worse. Smoked things tend to be worse, just depending on what the product is. But it was that Monday that I decided. And like I said, so since then I've done several other fasts, 72 hours. For a while I was doing a 72-hour fast like once a week or every other week, rolling 48-hour fasts. And typically it's the 72-hour fasts that make a difference. I have done some 48-hour fasts where afterwards, like at least one thing tastes or smells more like it used to. But overall, the things that I eat on a daily basis are fine. I can't use the same seasoning I used to use on my steak or my burgers. But typically I don't deviate from what I know I can eat because of the sadness, and it's almost like having a broken heart. I mean, so much of our lives revolve around food. So I just try to stay away from or not eat the things that I know don't agree with me at this point.
What are your top 5 foods right now that are kind of safe for you?
Yes.
The same top 5 foods as you guys probably. But I'll be, and so like that also has helped me with my resolve with Carnivore. I don't want to deviate. because what I'm doing is working. And I'll be honest, I made a ribeye one day last week and I was super disappointed. I never thought I'd be able to say that. It tasted good, but man, I wanted a hamburger. I wanted a hamburger with just a little pat of butter on it. So there's actually a whole ribeye up in the fridge that I'm going to give to the dog today, because today's probably the last day for it. And I would rather have a hamburger. Isn't that bizarre? I love ribeye.
Lucky dog.
But I know, right?
Your dog.
I know. So hamburger with a little bit of butter, eggs for sure. I've given up dairy for the month of February and had some realizations with that maybe we'll talk about in a little while, that I'm probably going to have to keep dairy out. So hamburgers, eggs, and more hamburgers. Like, I don't know, like I'm eating mostly hamburger patties. I'm buying like the big stack at Sam's that come in like that tube where they're fresh frozen, and I'm lining 2 pans with parchment paper and just putting them in the oven and cooking, 15 or 20 of those at once and putting them in a big Ziploc bag in the refrigerator. So, in a minute or a minute and a half, I can have, I prefer them grilled, but they're really good like this too. So, and I'll just warm a couple for a meal. They're pretty fatty. So 2 of them with some butter is about 1,000 calories. Yeah. Right.
You put some butter on them too?
I do. Sometimes I use more, than others. Really, a teaspoon is probably enough, but a lot of times I use a tablespoon just because I can.
Hey, I like that. Just because I can.
Butter.
Listen, you're in this world because butter. I love it.
Yeah.
You're in this world where, there's so much that your body's saying no to, and that's limited. And so I love that I can. I love just because I can,
And I do eat fish sometimes. Like, since yesterday, I've been wanting, somebody posted on Instagram like these giant shrimp and like lobster tails yesterday. And since then I've been buying the colossal shrimp. I mean, they're like frozen, they're like this big, they shrink a little bit, but they taste just like lobster. And so since yesterday I've been craving those, and I have some in the freezer, so I'm probably going to have those today. But typically anytime you ask, I will have just had a hamburger patty or 2 or 3. I love it. It's just, and it's so easy, and it takes the guesswork out of everything. And then I have all of those in the fridge. So I'm not cooking meals for my family as much because of this whole issue. But when somebody's hungry, I say there's some hamburger patties in the fridge. I shredded some chicken 2 days ago that's in there that you can have with, whatever kind of sauce you want on it. And so like I'm keeping those like protein things in the refrigerator for everybody. And that has really come in handy too, because then I can say, do you want me to warm you some of that? Nice. And then I'll make a little something on the side for them. But especially during basketball, we just haven't been home very much in the evenings. So next week, I'm going to probably have to start cooking a little bit more again for everybody, like at around dinner time. But it's really come in handy to have all of that stuff in the refrigerator and ready to go for not just me, but for everybody else too.
Yes, we love it too. We bulk cook. We have big family too. And so, and even for the animals, they eat off of that same food. So yeah, you kind of bulk cook and have this basic, here's your basics. And you're right. Like I'll oftentimes make nachos for my kids out of that kind of stuff, do some pork rinds, put the meat that I already have cooked, so I can turn it into a bunch of different things, or they can turn it into a bunch of different things and enhance it with some scrambled eggs on the side or some bacon. But yeah, I think that's for a large family dynamics, having that go-to prepped meat ready to go, ready to go to the air fryer if you need it, is just so powerful. And so tell us a little bit about your family, because you've mentioned that before too. I feel like you have some tips about carnivore and large family dynamics.
Yeah, and real quick, I need to put bacon on my list of the top 5. Yes. And beef bacon. I ordered beef bacon from a local butcher. And so beef bacon, regular bacon, hamburger patties, eggs are probably my top 4. So as far as a large family goes, our oldest 2 honestly don't eat here as much as they used to, but I thank God every day that our 21-year-old daughter, who's a real estate agent, still lives at home with us. She says she likes us and she is just not in a hurry. So she's saving her money. So hopefully she can actually just buy a house. We have been super blessed with our kids. We homeschool. So we have a 21-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old son, and then a 15-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old daughter. They're all even at the same time and they're all odd at the same time. All of our girls' birthdays are in the first 2 weeks of October, and so is our anniversary. So the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th are crazy. That's a crazy, 2.5 weeks for us. So they aren't home as much, and our younger 2, obviously they're here, every night for dinner. And like I said, like I just try to batch cook those things. So when I make shrimp, our two youngest don't really like shrimp, but my husband and I do. So I always make sure when I make a bunch of those to last us a few days, that I also have some hamburger patties, they're already cooked in the fridge, or that my husband is going to grill steak one of those days for them. And typically we have enough leftovers from whatever meal we eat. But I'll be honest, I made a head of cauliflower the other day for everybody, thinking they would be super excited because they hadn't had it in a long time. They love it with some Parmesan cheese on it. And I made it. It's one of the vegetables that does not smell rotten to me. And so I made that for them, and it sat on the stove overnight, and I thought I'll put it in the refrigerator the next day. And then I didn't. I just said, everybody eat this today, please. And yesterday I threw the whole thing out. So one of my daughters had one serving of it. And I'm like, this is why I'm just constantly throwing away vegetables. Like, it just drives me insane. And everybody,
they go bad.
even people who eat vegetables throw away like a quarter of their vegetables because they go bad. So, anyway, but I will buy some frozen stuff for them, like, the microwave in bag or steam in bag kind of things that I can just make on the side for them to go with whatever meat I already have in the refrigerator. They also really like rice, which the smell to me drives me insane. Rice and even noodles, like they're fine when they're dry, but as soon as they hit the water, they smell awful to me. It's that same rotten smell that everything else has. It's just so bizarre. Like my body, so I think I start to feel like my body doesn't want those things, so it makes it so much easier. Not everybody is as lucky as me with this awful smell and taste issue that keeps them from eating the things they should. I know. Yes. But not so I can
superpower, Serena.
Right, I know. So I know I'm not minimizing like the cravings that other people have and how hard it is for other people to give those things up. But my body, doesn't want those anyway right now. And so that makes it a little bit easier for me to say, well, I just can skip right over it because I know how rotten, it smells and tastes to me. And I have a really hard time not vocalizing that too. So like, I'll walk past my husband and say, can I smell your plate? Like just people that I'm just like barely friends with, their food comes at a restaurant. I say, can I smell that? And everybody's always holding their plates up to my nose, like children at basketball games. I say, can I smell what's on your plate? Everybody knows that I'm dealing with this, but I'll walk past my husband and say, can I smell that? And he'll go, yeah. And I'll walk away and go, oh, that smells so awful. And he'll say, gee, thanks. I'm so excited to eat this food that's so repulsive.
It has some other implications. So I wanted to hear a little bit about fasting. You mentioned fasting as part of this, to help you with this post-COVID syndrome. But I'm also want to hear about how fasting has changed for you since you've been participating in SB Gang and have been in the feasting and fasting groups for quite a bit, and just wanted to hear a little bit about that story in your life, how that's been going.
Yeah, I think fasting is so much harder when you don't have like a buddy or buddies to do it with. There's just something about what most people would call misery, it loves company. And so when that you're suffering through something and other people are suffering through it too, it becomes not such a suffer. I actually have a friend that fasts with me a lot too, a local friend. And a lot of times, we'll text each other, hey, I'm fasting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week. And that really helps too, to have somebody like local that I can talk to, somebody that I've seen in person, not like a virtual friend, makes a little bit of a difference too. But having buddies and having other people that have gotten to where you are through practice and trial and error and things like that, and knowing that you're not the only one who fails, like it just really helps to know, like when I think it's really important to be honest about the things, about our shortcomings and about the things that we're really good at. If you're honest about your shortcomings, you can help so many people. I think it's important that people don't think, oh, well, she's perfect, she can just do it. And, I'm not as good as her, that's why I can't do it. And so I have always tried to be just really honest when I feel like I have failed, or when I ate on, on hour 36 instead of 42. I mean, I will usually say this was supposed to be a 42-hour fast, but I was really hungry. I was out with friends and I went ahead and ate, at hour 36. Or I try to be honest about those things because I feel like that's going to help somebody else get through the part that they feel like they can't get through. Like they're either going to hear that I was sorry that I broke my fast early, or that it's okay, but you still do you, and I think that it just really, it helps people get through the parts that I needed help getting through before. So I just always feel like we should be honest about those things. But fasting overall and being a part of the group has just made a huge difference in my life. You know, knowing that I have those meetings, you know, on a weekly basis, on a, you know, 3 days a week basis, and knowing that, like, when we weren't, you know, in this like crunch of time this past couple of weeks for our family, I know my alarm goes off on my phone. I know a meeting is starting. And even if I can only hop on for 10 minutes, it still reminds me of the people that are there, the people that are doing this too, and hearing people's stories and hearing people's struggles. I can always find a bit of advice that somebody is giving to somebody else. I can always find that applies to me in every situation. It seems like, even if somebody is asking about an issue that I don't have, and they're asking how to help get through their issue, I can always find these little glimmers in it that go along with my weekly, you know, or even daily struggles. So being a part of a community, I think, is just, it's, for me, it would have been a lot harder to do it if I had not found that community and made friends, people that I really consider friends, like, along the way. I think that it would have been so much harder to not be able to reach out and ask questions and feel like it's okay that I don't have all the answers.
This is amazing. I love this call to honesty. I think that is so important. You know, sometimes we get so enthusiastic because we know, like, certain elements of this plan or that plan work, or there are really benefits, and we sell the rainbow a little bit too much sometimes because we're upbeat, we're excited. We're not doing that on, you know, that's on accident. Right. And we're not literally saying, oh, all your problems will be over if you just, you know, eat this way and fast this way. And, you know, we're never saying that, but I think that's really important to balance that perspective out, and being in community, being in those meetings together, seeing each other, hearing each other's struggles, knowing, you know, our ABs struggle, our coaches struggle, we all struggle, our members struggle, you know, nobody's perfect here. Nobody's like selling this before and after, and you'll never be, you know, have sadness again, or, you know, we're just, we're like, you will have sadness, and you have to open yourself to being a vessel to let experiences flow through you. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop controlling so much. We're trying to just let things flow. So I just appreciate that call to honesty.
So where are you right now with fasting? What are you currently doing?
Well, I had gone back to what you could call priming for the last couple of weeks. I just felt like so I'm an all or nothing kind of person, which is why carnivore works so great for me. I think I was fasting too much. I was doing alternate day fasting, or two rolling 48s, and then a 72, you know, first thing the next week. And I did that for about a month. And while I felt good, I also felt like it was probably too much stress on my body. I had talked to Stephen about the running that I was doing. And he pulled me back a little bit on that. Like, I just felt like I was putting too much pressure and too much stress on my body with starting a new exercise program. I was doing some of Coach Stephen's videos, and then I was also doing some sprints a few times a week while doing this rigid fasting schedule. And I felt like it was just too much for my body. I think we have to listen to ourselves with stuff like that and not just follow a schedule because it's there. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, I just felt like I was just putting too much stress, and that maybe that's why my body is just kind of holding on to the weight that I have gained while doing carnivore. I think that it was, under eating, and then I was fasting. And so my body was just like, hold on a minute, you know, what is going on here? And so many people will say, there's no way you gained weight while fasting and eating that little. There is a way to gain weight while fasting and eating not enough. I mean, it is not calories in, calories out. It is not how it works. There's so many hormones and stress hormones that play into that. And for me, I felt like it was too much. And at one point, maybe a month and a half ago, I realized that I was under eating. I went ahead and tracked my calories for a week. And I was eating, turns out there were some weeks I was only eating 5,000 calories in the whole week. Now, I know not everybody wants to count calories, but for me, that was a huge factor in realizing that I'm not doing this thing right. And so I started eating more, dropped a couple of pounds. My body was like, oh, thank you. But then I immediately went back into this I'm gonna do rolling 48s, and then I'm gonna take 3 days off, and then I'm gonna do a 72, and then I'm gonna eat one day, and then I'm gonna skip the next day. Like I just went into this like, this mass chaos for my body. So the fasting for me right now, the last few days I have gone more to an OMAD, which I hadn't been doing. I had been eating 2 or 3 times a day, not really counting calories, but just now I know the foods that I'm eating. I know about how much they contain, and that really helps me because I tend to be like full enough on 3 of those hamburger patties with a little bit of butter to get me through the whole day, and that's only 1,200 calories or something.
Oh, gotcha.
And so once I looked into that and tracked everything for just a little while, I was able to see that this is why this isn't working for me. 5,000 calories in 7 days is just clearly not enough for my body. It puts my body into this state of stress.
Yes.
And so I've kind of switched to more of an OMAD. It actually has been 2MAD this week mostly, but I was done by like 2 o'clock every day, and then didn't eat again until I had my coffee with the egg in it the next morning. And I think that has helped me this week, and I would like to go back to maybe fasting once or twice a week. But again, I think that's kind of a slippery slope for me sometimes. But I may do that this week, like just do like a 24-hour and see how it goes.
I remember her, it was like an eye opener when you told us about your under eating, and I was so glad for you to see you finally see the relief in your face.
Yes.
Realize you were under eating, and that could be the issue, and that you were struggling so far long. And I think many people have that as well. They're seeing that it's not working. They're on carnivore and they're saying, why is it not working? And just that little idea of that thought that comes into your head, maybe it's just under eating, and it's easily repaired just by actually allowing yourself to eat more as well, having the permission to eat more.
And doubling the amount that I was eating, I didn't even gain weight. I actually dropped a couple of pounds right off the bat. And so, I know not everybody wants to count calories, and that most of the time, for carnivores, we don't really advocate for that. But for me, it made a huge difference to see, wait a minute, my body is just starving. I
we always say don't count calories, but like this is a good reason for you to do it. Just in the beginning to see what you're eating and if it's enough, and just to just to get the concerns out of your mind, and start go from there. So it's just something that we could do, but we would love it if you just listen to your body. But sometimes that's not how everyone works, especially in the beginning when you don't even know your signals
right
yet.
And if you've been under eating for a long time, you do feel full on just a little bit of food. So
absolutely. I feel like right now you're actually building your metabolism back up. You're eating generously, you're actually being cautious on the fasting. I think that's so important. That actually is just going to help you overall in your wholeness journey, in your fat burning journey. You're getting your metabolism revved up, and that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to tell the body it's safe to be efficient now, because the leanness and dropping the weight is a sign of efficiency. And so that's how we're training this. So that was very powerful testimony when you realized you were under eating and became a warrior against that, and say, no, I became a nourishment warrior. So that was a big moment in group, and it affected a lot of people. So
I think so too.
So Serena, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Burgers and butter.
Good.
Sharing the things that I have learned, with other people really brings me a lot of joy. Obviously I have, it's all about context. So I have lots of joys in my life. I have 4 wonderful children. I have a wonderful husband. I have, a nice home and enough money to buy groceries for our family. And, so like I have lots of simple things to be joyful over. And because of the context of this, and because we're talking about food, I can honestly say that the joy for me comes from my food addiction being gone. I really feel like for me, I find joy in going hiking and taking a long hot bath, and, you know, I have lots of things. But for me, the peace that I feel since cutting out all of the carbohydrates that were just damaging my body and my health, I think I have joy in sharing that with other people. And, you know, the joy comes from the peace that I have about the decision that I have made to eat this way. And like I said, just sharing it with other people, I think if people knew that, that making this one simple choice, and it really is pretty simple, that it could make such a huge impact on their lives and on their brains, you know, their health and their mental wellness. I mean, I think mental wellness is just huge. And so for me, the joy comes in, I think, having made the decision and knowing how much it has helped me, and then helping other people and just putting that out there for other people, and giving them advice, I think.
Invite 3 famous people to your house for dinner. Who would that be and why?
Okay. So for me, I don't really get, like, I don't know if most people probably would pick celebrities for this. For me, because of the joy that I find in sharing and things like that, I think that the 3 people that I would invite would be Anthony Shaffey. You guys have seen him, right? On Instagram. I think I would invite him, and then somebody like a really seasoned carnivore, like maybe Kelly Hogan, maybe. And then I would invite the Secretary of Health and Services to my table. And I would want to talk about the human diet, and I would want to talk about like the American diet, the SAD diet, and why we advocate that for people. I would want them to be honest, and I would want the Secretary of Health and Human Services to bring us documents that prove that the food pyramid is the way to eat. And I would want Dr. Shaky to explain why that's, you know, not true. And I would want Kelly to tell them about all the things that she has healed with her food choices. I just think that there is just a terrible disservice being done to Americans, really to everybody around the world, but Americans specifically, on people don't ever, like, I don't know anybody, I don't think in my own personal life, maybe a couple of people, but most everybody does not equate the way they feel with what they eat.
Yes.
And you can say it all day long to people. It's like the fuel you put in your car. You can expect your car to run on the wrong fuel, but they're looking at the food pyramid and they're seeing the food pyramid is saying, but this is the right food for me. And changing that mindset that has been around, you know, for as long as it has, and it's really not even that long when you look at human history, but changing that mindset from what has been ingrained in us since the 70s when the food pyramid was created, and knowing that those studies that they used were funded by Kellogg's and all the grain people. So, you know, they never even produced any findings saying, like, they didn't have scientific studies that said, this is why this is the healthy diet. But now we have so much research on the fact that that is not right. And I don't know what it would take to change that for Americans in general. But the fact, what is it, like 80% of Americans are overweight? I mean, we have to fix that somehow. So many diseases and issues are, you know, being hurt because of our food choices. And I think if people could really understand that what you put in your body is what your body runs on, and you can't put processed foods in it all the time. You can't give it carbohydrates all the time. That's why we have our afternoon crashes, you know, which I no longer have from carnivore.
You just have such a passion to be a change agent in this world. And I love that. That's spectacular answer. I kept on thinking of this thing that I hear, that food equals mood. And this is true. You know, we have all known this, that is the basis of our mental health now, is our food. But that's just phenomenal. So I do want to ask you about your work that you're doing in the space right now. You've got some exciting things coming. And so we just want to hear about what you're up to. What are you putting out there?
Well, I have a YouTube channel, and my name across the board on all of the social media sites that I'm on: Instagram, Facebook.
Since this recording, Serena has changed her Instagram, YouTube to serena.carnivore.
But still, that's my name. And I'm going to just do some videos. I'm trying to keep my YouTube videos kind of short, just kind of like get to the point kind of YouTube videos. Some of them are going to be longer than that, obviously, but I just think that it's really important that people see all of us doing all of this work basically, and trying to reach out to people and share what we have learned. Like, learning is the best experience, going through all of it and hearing from people that feel better. For me, it was Kelly Hogan all the way, just listening and seeing her story, and then Laura Spath and watching her weight loss issue, things, and taking better gal, and all of you guys. Like, it has just been so amazing for me, even more than the weight issues, is the autoimmune diseases that people have, made themselves feel so much better from, and the mental part of it for me. And I think for me, that's probably my most important message, is the mental part of it, because I am very much a carb addict and a food addict. And I do not feel like this is restrictive at all to me. Restrictive is being nervous at every meal about how I was going to handle it. And every time we were eating out, and I would obsessively read menus first and look things up first and count things, like how much of this can I have? And so for me, the freedom that came with being able to eat out without that anxiety that I used to have, and I know you guys are nodding. I mean, we all feel like that, right? Like, I can go anywhere I want and get a hamburger without a bun or a steak or a piece of grilled chicken. I mean, I can, and I used to feel like that with other things that I was doing in the past, because I've tried everything. And I used to feel like that with other things, but this is different. It's a different, peaceful feeling about my food. I have no anxiety at all about what I'm going to eat today and whether or not it's going to serve my body the way that it should. I have no stress about my food at all. I'm going to go upstairs, warm a couple of those hamburger patties while the shrimp thaw in the sink, and I'm going to be good for the day, And so for me, that freedom is what I would love for other people to feel. And I think that everybody should know about it, and we should just tell everybody.
I love that. Well, that should do it. I mean, everybody should follow Serena. Make sure you like and subscribe, not only to the Butter Dish, but to Serena's channel as well. What is that channel again, Serena?
It's Carnivore Running Mom.
Okay, so everybody please subscribe, like, hit that notification button, and we look forward to more stories from Serena. I've learned so much from you today. I'm sure the girls have as well.
Oh, that was wonderful.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
You guys are always so much fun to talk to.
Thank you.